Good morning. Today, welcome to the very first Revenue Flow podcast. My name is Ben. I'm one of the co-founders of Revenue Flow. And today, I'm joined by Vlad de Ziegler.
Thanks, Ben, for having me here. I'm super excited.
Vlad, founder of Elements Agents, a full deployed engineering firm that builds AI systems for revenue teams. Vlad and his team, they automate the entire go-to-market stack, from outbound prospecting and buying signal detection to AI voice agents, and even build customer success workflows. Vlad's been teaching operators and developers on how to build AI workflows for 2 years through his school community and his YouTube channel. He's co-hosted AI Agent Week in Portugal alongside Crew AI, and has shipped production-ready AI agents for companies across sales, marketing, and CS. He's based in Lisbon, and when he's not building agents, he's either doing triathlons, playing tennis, or having a couple of beers on a Friday night. Vlad, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks. You forgot about the surfing, but I guess I'm not good enough to actually add it to the list of hobbies.
No, I think you've got too many hobbies already.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Well, Vlad, thanks so much for joining us today. You've described previously in the past as what you do as building AI agents for boring businesses. Mm-hmm. You were previously working in Amsterdam in agtech for a startup. I'd love to know, give us a bit of an overview of your background and what made you leave the biotech and innovation world to go all in on AI agents for revenue teams.
Yeah, so I actually got into the agribusiness industry because back in the days, so I have a finance/commercial background, and I wanted to get into trading because in trading you get a sense of how the world works. So you have like a macro level, and then you have the micro level, which is really understanding where the value lies and how to create value, holding like trading positions. And then like bit by bit, I eventually just realized that I was more interested in tech. So I slowly moved away from focusing solely on trading to actually implementing digital solutions in the commodities trading company I was working for. And then bit by bit, I realized that actually working in a software company was more interesting. So I moved to agritech. And then once I was in agritech, it was a very interesting space. I think the challenges there are very exciting. But it's just a very difficult industry to be in. Long sales cycles, it's very hard to sell to growers. And then basically what happened is I wanted to launch my own thing, and I was not going to launch something in agritech. And then all of a sudden, Gen AI, I think ChatGPT 3.5 came out, and I started playing around with it. And basically I've been in this rabbit hole now for over 2 years, and I haven't been looking back since.
Yeah, so you've been doing this for a couple of years now, and obviously GPT 3.5 was a pretty revolutionary model when it came out, but it wasn't as groundbreaking, I suppose, as what Claude Code or even Codex or what these sort of models can do today. What did you see very early on that made you think, I've got to go all in on this, that others were perhaps overlooking and missing?
So I would say that initially it was... So I will always remember watching this YouTube tutorial about Crew AI and how you could actually just plug in different models to build agentic workflows. And I really felt like the magic with like building agents. And basically I started like building my own set of agentic workflows using Crew AI, which is an agentic framework, open source. And even if the models were not that great, it was just it was really like good enough to play around and like build demos and really get a sense of how powerful these models were. And then very quickly, once you start learning and reading about LLMs, you kind of know that it's just like throwing compute to improve models. And there's always been a lot of hype and anticipation around the release of new models that would improve and open up new use cases. So even if I was, maybe building things that were not production ready immediately, I was just building this muscle, and I kind of knew that models would get better. And now in the last couple of months, it's been groundbreaking again. With the release of Opus 4.6 from Claude, Gemini 3.0, and other models as well. Yeah,
and I think there's been a lot of talk about what functions AI can disrupt the most. And as a former salesperson myself, I was an SDR, I was an account manager, and sales was always a very operational and very kind of boring. There was a lot of rote tasks like building out lead lists, finding information, building sequences. But now over the last couple of years, there's been a range of vendors out there like Clay, Full Enrich, and a lot of tools out there which have come out and kind of disrupted the landscape a lot. What made you think that AI would impact GTM the most, and why did you steer your efforts towards GTM and revenue for what AI could do?
So it's interesting because I had a conversation with a product manager at Lemlist last week, And basically, we're talking about how to actually find leads. Basically, in every GTM motion, the very first part is to find leads. And usually the way you find leads, you can either go on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, apply different filters and create a list, and then find their emails and so on. And with AI, basically, what's very interesting is that you can actually capture a lot more unstructured data. So you don't have to use necessarily like super strict filters. You can get more creative in finding information online about companies, getting a semantic understanding about your ICP and your potential customers. And so it opens up like so many new opportunities to find leads online that you can then just feed into your sales funnel essentially. So I think AI is very good at that, at capturing new data points, at understanding better whether there is a fit or not with what you're offering. And then you can use a lot of AI also to just suggest you next actions and how to basically tackle those and like reach out to these prospects.
Interesting. I don't know if you've seen, there's a famous article published by Julian Beck, a partner at Sequoia, a couple of weeks ago, where he talks about intelligence work, which is operationally intensive. You need to be smart. It just requires a lot of time and effort to do, like writing a research paper, building out a lead list, building out workflows. And then you've got judgment tasks, which are things that require experience, and it's a bit more kind of nuanced what you need to do. In the world of GTM, a judgment task would be like having a sales conversation, knowing when to push forward or pull back on a deal. And what we do at Revenue Flow is really, we envisage AI as taking away all of that intelligence work off of GTM's team's plates so they can be much more strategic. We talk a lot about kind of elevating the strategic maturity of GTM teams. So I'd love to understand from your perspective, what are the kind of intelligence-based tasks which are easiest to disrupt in GTM with AI?
So there's a lot around playbooks. So basically, whenever you have a sales leader who knows, who's gone through, selling to the, specific segment for, let's say, 2 years, they kind of identify patterns, and those patterns you can kind of codify them and add them into, either a prompt or a cloud skill or whatever, and then you can make them accessible to the rest of your team. And I think this is kind of a first part of like an intelligence layer that you can kind of not say like productize, but that you can make accessible to the rest of your team. And I think this is kind of a low-hanging fruit for companies, is go through your CRM, look at like the wins and losses, and what's your ideal customer profile, and then just go back to your past experience dealing with these people. How did you convince them? How did you sell to them? Going through your transcripts and notes. And then you just add this and just talk to an LLM to kind of refine basically your learnings, and then you can just turn this into like a big prompt that people can have access to basically have this intelligence available to new SDRs who are being onboarded, who don't necessarily have the experience selling to these people or just sales experience overall.
So I think maybe taking a step back up and imagine. Let's think about what like an AI-native go-to-market stack would look like. Say a B2B company comes up to you, say a $10 million boring business based out of Houston, for example, and they said rebuild our entire go-to-markets from scratch with AI. Obviously, you don't want to run before you can walk. But if you had to kind of rebuild it from scratch, can you walk me through what that would look like and like where would you start?
So I think the very first question is, so I think there are two questions. The first one is around data. Is your data clean, and can you actually use that data to infer anything? Because if it's all a mess, and coming back to the example of a wholesaler, for instance, that I've been working with in the US, in Houston specifically, they have dozens of thousands of product SKUs. So if you actually want to have a process to identify what, if you want a salesperson to be able to recommend the right product, you have to make sure that the taxonomy and the quality of the data and of these products is kind of clean. So first question is the data ready and to be fed to an LLM to come up with suggestions and to be fed into, like a traditional sales funnel? That's the first part. And then the second part is, are the processes clear? So if you have, as many processes as you have like salespeople, then maybe the first part is, how can we organize and structure the knowledge that we have scattered across all the salespeople to understand how we can systematize it? So I would say like data needs to be clean and the processes need to be clear. And so those are the first two exercises that you need to start with before automating anything, I would say.
And can you walk me through, like give me a tangible example of what that would look like and how, because I think if you're like an older business, and the Economist released an article a couple of weeks ago saying that AI, only about less than 5% of businesses in the US actually use AI when manufacturing goods and services. So can you give me an example of how this business that you're working with has leveraged AI agents to actually streamline and improve revenue off the back end?
Yeah. So I had this client where basically they do like account-based marketing, meaning that there's a finite number of potential customers for them. And what this means is that it's like kind of a hard constraint on what they can do to reach out to them, and they cannot really afford to mess up a relationship with these prospects. So let's say you have like 500 people in the world that you can potentially reach out to, let's say like banks. Every time that you reach out to them, it has to be like super specific, targeted, personalized, and relevant. And so for these people, you basically need to understand what are coming back to like getting into the specifics of the processes. You need to gather all the salespeople and tell them, okay, so if there's this bank that announced, for instance, that there's like this M&A transaction, or that they recently partnered with this tech company, what should we do? Should we invite them for dinner? Should we invite them to a webinar? Should we actually send them like an email sequence displaying and pushing our solutions and so on? So you need to basically gather all these salespeople in one room and consolidate all these learnings and have them to agree on the next step. And once you kind of know, okay, given a specific signal, what step should be taken, then you can actually start automating some of that process. So that's what I meant by having the data clean and like a process that is clear. Is data clean is, can we actually identify that company that acquired that bank that acquired a company? So this is like kind of a signal that needs to be clean and fed into your operations basically. And then are the sales team agreeing on what they should do whenever there is like something around these lines that happen at one of their prospects?
And I guess when we're actually working with clients, we kind of categorize clients into two buckets. You've got type 1, which is small target market, high ACV, and you don't want to burn relationships. And then you've got these kind of type 2 clients, which we'll get onto in a minute, which kind of really good product, a bit more commoditized and really high TAM. I just want to focus on this type 1 for a bit longer. I guess perhaps when it comes to type 1, you don't really need AI for the outreach because it's such a small target market. You don't want to burn any TAM. So maybe the biggest use case there is about giving them access to data on the fly so that they can make the most of it. Is that how you see it on the type 1 type of customer?
Yeah, I think we've had this discussion already in the past around how like basically personalization, it doesn't really matter if you personalize a message to someone who's not in your ICP and who's not going to be interested in your product or does not need it now. It doesn't matter how personalized your message is, it's not going to lead to any positive reply because generally people don't reply to cold emails anyways. So basically I would say that, so the question was around how would you...
So maybe I could ask it a bit better. I think when it comes to enterprise customers or teams which are targeting enterprise prospects, do you think the bigger use case of AI is more around cleaning the data, give them access to good signals and data that they can then use for their outreach rather than like creating a bunch of AI personalized emails because they don't want to create too many because then there's only so many. They could probably do it manually themselves if they need to, right?
100%. I think that's kind of the trap, and I've made that mistake where you build a demo and you can show like the entire thing completely automated, going from like tracking the signal all the way to like generating an email sequence. And if you show it like in the demo, it looks kind of nice. But then like if you read carefully every email, you're like, this feels a bit off. Like, do I feel comfortable sending this? And then what you realize is that you're probably going to spend more time trying to tweak the LLMs to come up with something good. And like you said, like maybe you only have 5 emails to send. So you may be better off just feeding all that context to an experienced salesperson so that they will come up with their own email angle, So at some point you have to know, okay, how far do I want to go in the automation with AI? And, sometimes the optimization is just not worth it. You might as well just leave it to the salesperson. So that's where I think the exercise of figuring out how much time you're wasting, how many emails you need to send comes into play to basically address these trade-offs.
Yeah. I think about this a lot because I had a conversation with an enterprise AE at a pretty high growth tech company out of London called Incident.io, the incident management software.
Okay.
And he was telling me that they no longer do any he was going after enterprise customers.
Yeah.
They no longer do any kind of completely cold outreach. But now they just rely on signals built from their RevOps team and their marketing team, which is fed into the SDRs. And the SDRs now spend all of their time calling. They don't do any emails, any outreach that's done by the marketing team. And so maybe that's an example where all of the intelligence work is completely taken away by AI, and then the humans. I guess you have AI SDRs who can do cold calling, but it's not quite good enough yet. So is that perhaps an example of how you see things running? You get in enterprise customers, you get all the data and give it to a salesperson to go out and do the pitching and do the selling.
Yeah. I think we kind of get too excited about what you can do with AI, and then you can lose the plot a little bit on, what makes a good salesperson. And I think you read a lot about, what distinguishes a good from an excellent salesperson, and usually it's just following up, the stamina, the energy that you bring in. So that's one thing. I think just coming back to actually a phone call is probably where you can display the most, your ability to sell, and you can be the most convincing. And secondly, I think there's a lot of saturation also of specific channels. So maybe cold email used to work a couple of years ago, but today people are basically are drowning in emails just in general, but also from cold emails. So you have to get more creative in how you're going to reach out to your prospects. And I think now we're reaching this full circle moment where everyone is using AI to automate email sequences. So maybe it's time to pick up the phone again to stand out.
Yeah. And it's something that I think about a lot, because I will push back on what you've just said there, because I think there is a place for email. And you look at cold email agencies, Eric Nowoslawski, Growth Engine X. I think he sends, probably messing up these, he sends about 8 million emails a year. And I think he gets 60,000 positive replies a year.
Yeah.
This is what he said in recent pod.
Crazy.
I might be off with that. So it's clearly working for him.
Yeah.
And we've got a few customers who have a really good product, a really big target market. And our email is not personalized at all.
Yeah.
It's just offer, lead magnet, credibility.
Yeah.
So do you think that there is a place for cold email for some markets or not?
I think in your case, which I love, is basically you have a big TAM. So it's like a numbers game, essentially. And the second thing is, and maybe I'm wrong, but there is no real discovery, of the problem. You kind of know already the problem. They want to make more sales. So you can just push a solution, and then it's just a numbers game. Some of them will be interested in making more money, and who's not interested in that in some respect. In my case, for instance, with Elements, there's a lot more discovery and trying to understand their problem and to help them understand, whether it's painful or not, and how expensive it is for them to not fix it today. And I think this is where it gets a bit trickier, maybe, is not only the size of the market, it's also how much work you need to do in helping your prospect discover and appreciate the problem that they need to solve. I think that's kind of a distinction from traditional maybe outbound that that might work well. And probably there are some agencies doing really well doing cold outbound, selling custom software development services. But for me, it hasn't worked. So maybe I just have to adapt and pick a different angle.
Yeah, no, it is interesting because there's so many different avenues, and I guess there's so many gurus who say something will work, and then it just depends on your offer and your product. And I feel like when we're working with customers, we're often doing calculations based off this person's average contract value, their close rate, the length of their sales cycle, and where their prospects live. You really have to figure it out for yourself. But I think perhaps what GTM now enables you to do is, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, is before VTM was very, very fragmented. You might have one person doing cold email with building up Apollo lists and sending those out, and then you might have an SDR calling completely random leads, and then the marketing department does LinkedIn content, and it's very kind of fragmented and dispersed. How do you think GTM and using AI agents can help you create a much more cohesive go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting evolution in go-to-markets today. It seems like having an AE who can handle the full end-to-end sales cycle is probably the way forward. Just having basically there's no space for mediocrity, and so you basically want to hire probably more experienced and more senior people, or just people who high performers who can maybe do more of the work and use AI to automate and pre-manage some of the work in the funnel. But then when it comes to actually being on the phone, being on the demo, being able to convince like senior people to like sell a complex product. Maybe that's where that's probably like the direction we're heading towards. So again, I was talking to this guy from Lemlist who's selling a bunch of prospecting tools. And so basically what they're seeing is that a lot of go-to-market teams today, they use Cloud Code and they integrate with a lot of tools. And you just have someone like coding or just prompting Cloud Code to automate some of their sales activities. And then when it comes to like picking up the call, it's just like an experienced AE who's basically doing both. Using the tool to reach out, create those lead lists, send out emails, and then doing the demo call themselves.
It is interesting how, like, I always think the biggest value does lie in a customer, and I think we are still profoundly human, and I don't think AI can perhaps replace that human connection yet. And I know this is perhaps more of a philosophical and existential discussion about what humanity really needs, but ultimately people do need to feel trusted and feel valued. And I guess a salesperson, leveraging AI is probably the best way forward. But where do you see the kind of biggest value lie within a go-to-market team? Is it in a highly experienced kind of AE with a lot of strategic sales experience, or is it in like an orchestrator, a systems builder who can actually build all the motion behind? If you're a CRO or VP of sales at, let's say a high growth Series A SaaS company, what kind of role do you look for first?
So I remember reading about 11 Labs, like an article that they shared about how they're setting up quotas and like basically the success of their go-to-market. And what they were saying is it's a lot easier to hire someone who's good at sales and to teach them about the product than the other way around. And maybe this applies also to having a good orchestrator. I think all these skills can be taught. You can like just push people to spend the first 2 weeks playing around with Cloud Code, and people will figure it out. Especially salespeople, they are usually someone who's they're usually people who are resourceful and like using whatever tools they need to actually hit their quota and like make more money essentially. So if that's the incentive and they're good at that, I think it's the skills of using AI and orchestrating AI is maybe sounds a bit daunting initially, but it turns out to be, I think, a lot easier to teach than to teach sales skills.
Interesting. And it's something that we've actually realized ourselves. Obviously, Clay's been huge, and they invented the term go-to-market engineer, and they invented the role. And we, a year ago when I first discovered this, I'd actually come back from a year traveling and surfing in Indonesia. I was completely mesmerized as to what happened. And we pivoted from being a content agency to being a go-to-market agency that we are today, hired a bunch of go-to-market engineers, and we realized, oh wait, hang on a minute. It was really effective at first, but then using a go-to-market engineer with Clay, when Opus 4.6 came out, you were no longer limited by 50,000 rows like Clay limits you. You no longer had this back and forth with the go-to-market engineer. And Tim, my brother and co-founder of Revenue Flow, basically was able to eliminate the kind of go-to-market engineer role and streamline and create that whole workflow with AI agents. So I think that's a perfect example of how yes, the technical roles are completely automatable. But one of the most valuable people on our team now is James, who's an SDR, extremely hungry, shows so much grit. Doesn't have any technical skills, but but he's
great lad.
Extremely hungry and he's so agile and adaptable. Gets on the phone and it's as a lean AI native go-to-market agency, he's such a value add to our team.
I think, it's amazing. I think those are people that you should really keep at all costs. But I heard that there's a ratio of like 3-to-1 whenever now people are moving to like AI native teams. Basically, you have like 3 people who are good at like building with those tools, and then you have some sort of like a strategist / experienced person. And maybe this is the direction. And again, your team is lean, but as you scale and probably have more people across more teams, maybe you need some people to pre-match the work and automate, and then you just have someone who's really good at getting all the context they need to basically do their job the best way possible and spend 0 time on admin and like follow-ups or anything like that, because this is the reality of sales people today, is that they're spending 30 to 40% of their time going on LinkedIn, finding signals, understanding if their prospects are ready to basically buy their product. sending follow-up emails, converting notes from transcripts in like a CRM, whatever. So you just have to remove all of that using GTM engineers or Tim in your case to do all that work. And then you have that guy who just picks up the phone and calls the prospects.
Here's the phone and start dialing. I think,
Yeah.
I do think that the best tech stack today is if you can find the best signals. If you're going after enterprise, for example, find the best possible signals, enrich the lead list, put that into an AI dialer, have an SDR who's really, really hungry, parallel dialing 5 calls at a time. It's like, how is that not an unlimited meeting booking machine?
Yeah.
Which I think if you're an enterprise, it works really, really well. Anyways, this is really, really interesting. We could go on all day. But if you're a company, a smaller company, and you're looking at these two dynamics between having builders and operators and system orchestrators and having salespeople, what is the biggest mistake that you can make when you're actually looking to like build a GTM team? If we're looking at smaller companies,
I think what's hard for a GTM engineer is to get very excited with the AI tools, and then you start building a bunch of things and you feel like you're moving in the right direction, but you're this feeling now, and people talk about it like of procrastinating, and because you're building, it feels like you're actually doing something, but sometimes it's just not moving the needle from a business standpoint. So I think just making sure that you're a GTM engineer, and maybe this is where it gets tricky, still have a sense, like a business sense, and knowing whether what they're building is valuable to that specific department. I think that's one thing to watch out for, is not building for the sake of building. And then regarding like salespeople to get productive, I think they really have to, I think, play around with AI tools. Maybe even if they don't have the skills and they're never going to be the ones building with cloud code, sometimes people underestimate how much they can do with AI, and they're convinced that they need to go on LinkedIn and like look at all these signals themselves to get a feeling and stuff. Whereas if you go on Gemini and add a little prompt, I do this with my podcast guys, for instance, and then it's going to look up, every interviews they've ever given, all the LinkedIn posts they've written, and so on, and then it gives you like amazing notes to prepare for a podcast. And this applies to also doing sales. So I think it's like both ways. Like engineers need to have a bit of a business sense, and salespeople need to play around just a little bit with AI to know what they can automate and delegate.
I love your point about this idea that you can be building stuff without actually moving the needle. And I like to call it productive procrastination, or I've got a more naughty name, but I won't use that. Productive procrastination, if you look on LinkedIn, your timeline is filled with these like 10-step GTM workflows. I mean, we post a lot of them as well, where you've got things going from Triggerify to Clay, it's enriched, it's pushed to full enrich, goes back to CRM, and then you push it out through a parallel dialer or through Lemlist or whatever it is, and you have like ads, thought leader ad campaigns pushing whatever it is. So you can build these like really complex workflows that generate a lot of positive replies. And in fact, I was speaking to a prospect who's about to join us, and he said, we've got Instantly set up, but we get 120 positive replies a month, but we don't get any meetings off the back of it. So how do you actually determine whether the efforts that you're doing are productive, or whether it's just a bit of mental masturbation?
So you mean this guy is getting like 120 meetings?
120 positive replies, and they're converting, maybe they're getting like 5 to 10 meetings a month, but like no deals off the back of it, right?
All right, okay.
So you can be in a GTM team, get a lot of positive replies, but it doesn't lead to revenue. So if you're a head of sales or leading the sales function, you're looking at all these fancy workflows being put in place. How do you not get caught by shiny object syndrome? And how do you, what metrics should you really be using when you're actually building out these workflows and these systems?
I think that's tricky. I would still love to have like this setup, like this workflow setup for me. But I would say, and I think we've talked about this as well, is whenever you set up those email sequences, sometimes you talk about those lead magnets and the offer needs to be sharp to like really drive positive replies. But sometimes you're like also getting a bit distracted, and your goal becomes like, okay, how can I get positive replies? And then, okay, people sure want your lead magnet or whatever, but that doesn't mean that they're actually going to buy your product. And I think I don't have any answer to that, but I think that this is like an exercise, like how far can you go because some people are always going to be interested in like free stuff. So they obviously reply to your call, but then when it comes to figure out the budget and like whether they actually have a need, this is where it stalls and where basically you waste time. So maybe there's something around like qualifying and making sure that you're sending emails to the right people. This is one thing. And then maybe also when it comes to the offer, maybe a bit you have to be a bit stricter in like the lead magnet that you're offering, where there's maybe like some pre-qualification as soon as they engage with the lead magnet to ensure that you're not wasting time trying to qualify and like basically sell to people who are not going to invest.
Brilliant. So I feel like, just to maybe define the question a bit more narrowly, because I probably didn't pose it in the best way. If you're leading up the sales function or in charge of revenue within a business, and you get someone saying, okay, right, I want to come in, implement AI agents. Let's look specifically at kind of lead generation and building up pipeline. How much time should you give to those efforts before determining whether they're effective or not? And what metrics should you be looking at? Is it more net new opportunities created? Is it pipeline velocity? Is it revenue closed off the back end? Is it because, as you say, it's very very easy to get tempted by positive replies and things like this. So what actually counts? What actually should you be tracking when you're setting up lead generation using AI and for a small kind of services or tech company?
I mean, to be fair, I don't think there's like a definitive answer. Usually, when I go about it, I usually ask about their current go-to-market. And I'm like, okay, where do you... Basically, I'm always trying to stay away from optimizing things that are not efficient. That are not working. So if someone is using SEO and they're, getting a lot of inbound, like a lot of traffic, basically with SEO, then I'm going to be, okay, how can we programmatically create more pages according to your existing rules of SEO, so that you can actually scale faster and bring in more traffic with a process that is already working and that fits your ICP and so on, instead of telling them, okay, now we're going to use AI to basically create a bunch of AI generated webinars with your avatar because people would be interested in that. Like you have to kind of focus on what's already working and then automate. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is what's their priority? So usually when you talk to like VP marketing, like chief revenue officer, they always have objectives, like business objectives, and then you're trying to fit into that budget line or that KPI that they're trying to improve in that specific period. I would say, it's already hard enough, so try to fit with whatever your customer is trying to achieve.
No, I love that, and I think it's very easy to when you're in the echo chamber of GTM to think, oh my god, Claude Code and Codex is completely revolutionizing how you can build out these campaigns, but then it's very easy to get shiny object syndrome and think, okay, maybe there's a lot of stuff being put out there, but in reality, when push comes to shove, what is the wave? Does it actually impact my business on a day-to-day?
100%. I do that mistake. I make all the time. I try to like push a bunch of stuff, and I explain my case studies and things we can do. But you have to really unlearn that and just focus on what they're trying to achieve, and then get creative about how you can build something around it.
Awesome. No, Vlad, that's really interesting, and we could go on all day. Wanted to change gears a little bit, and you've often said, I think you said in a previous podcast, you build for agents, not for people, and that's kind of like the next era of software. What does that actually mean practically for how we design workflows and go to market? Imagine it's AI agents reading emails, AI agents looking at content, AI agents looking at ads. How do you think AI agents should be building go-to-market systems, which are potentially being intercepted by AI agents?
I mean, to be honest, this is more of a mental exercise today. I'm not sure anyone really knows how to do that. But I had a interesting conversation with someone from I forgot the name, but like a senior sales guy who was telling me about how basically salespeople won't disappear because of AI. They will disappear because of AI procurement agents. Because at some point the buying process is going to be so standardized with agents that no matter how good you are, if you pick up the call and try to convince an agent, it's not going to land. So I think this the issue is more about how can you make your product how can you win on standard terms and not rely on good sales skills.
What do you mean by standard terms?
So basically, if you have an agent that is you have a procurement agent. So if we take a specific example, you have a company trying to do called omni-channel prospecting. So having a tool to do like calling, emails, SMS, whatever. It's going to go online. It's going to do some deep research and look up at look at maybe 5-6 different alternatives. Then it's going to scrape all the pages and it's going to evaluate the features, see how this fits with the goal that the agent was set, by like the head of like procurement, whatever. And then it's going to basically scrape all these pages and then look at the prices, maybe send out like a bunch of emails asking about the prices, trying to discover without having to attend a call, whatever. So this is maybe like the agentic age. And how can you actually show up and convince those agents to actually get on the call? But like the standard terms is if you don't have all these pre-requirements that the agents will like interact with online about your product. So like Lemlist, for instance, it doesn't have like a price on its page. Maybe the agent is not even going to engage with you. So maybe this is not like super clear, but I think by standard I meant like, okay, you basically need to understand your buyers, what are the different criteria that they're going to evaluate you against, and make sure that all this information is available online so that it can be scraped by an agent and so that you can be part of that tender process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting, and I hadn't heard of that before. And it almost seems to go against what we were talking about earlier, where like the biggest value would rely in the salesperson and the relationships. Yeah. But if you've got an AI procurement agent who's just basically scanning the website, determining whether there's a fit or not, then surely the value then goes back into the product and not on the GTM side. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, it's true. I mean, there's this MCP today. So basically, a lot of the companies are going to move away from having a traditional UI to being API first, to be able to be integrated with tools like Cloud Code and Cursor and Cloud Cowork, whatever. This means that all of their developer documentation is very likely to be available online, and it's going to be scraped by tools like Contact 7, let's say. And so at some point, basically, you're going to have an agent that is going to look up your website, look at the price, offering, tiers, and so on. But then it's also going to go through the developer documentation and see whether you actually have the API endpoints to do whatever they need to do. So it's going to get into like the specifics. And I lost track. I'm not sure why I'm talking about this, but what was the?
Yeah, no, I think the question was more, if you've got an AI procurement agent. Scanning the proposal, all the requirements, all the capabilities of a product, and then comparing it against what it's been told, what it's been prompted to look at. Where does the role of the salesperson come in?
Well, it's a good question, and I don't really have the answer. I still believe that like at some point, like agents will help like shortlist solutions. But then when it comes to make the final call, you're still going to have to show up on a call. You're still going to have to show up to convince more than one person. You have like a complex buying committee. And this is where like salespeople get good at like navigating maybe like those complex dynamics and politics, because there's always a trade-off between different tools. Does it overlap with like tools that are used in different departments? Do they have the budget? Do they have to unlock budgets from different departments? And I think this is where maybe the salesperson will have to be really good at. But it's true that if we think about prosumer tools that are super cheap and cost $9 a month, maybe these ones are gonna, it's gonna be a lot. I mean, you probably don't have salespeople for these tools anyways, so it's not relevant. But I would say, maybe enterprise tools. It's gonna get like, people are gonna build their own set of tools, and when it comes to like super complex products, you're gonna have complex sales cycles, and this is where I think salespeople will really stand out.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think my brother and I were talking, and we both agreed that probably the last role to be automated by AI in the kind of commercial go-to-market space is enterprise account executive. Yeah. Just if you're selling huge, for those who don't know, it's just selling really big deals to large companies. If you're selling $1 million+ deals a year, I think we're a long way away from an AI agent be able to completely be able to coordinate all the stakeholders and decide upon that. So as you say, I think the SMB, micro, all these like maybe really small ACV type companies, all of that will be automated via agents. But then the bigger the deal size comes in, that's when the humans come into play.
100%. I think medium ACV or I don't know, like mid ACV. I forget the term. Or like low ACV contracts, this is probably where salespeople will have a harder time to stand out. Yeah, which actually makes me question, because the natural, and this is maybe another question for another day, but
the natural career progression for a salesperson, it is quite a difficult job, and you would normally go from being an SDR and calling a lot to selling smaller deals or selling bigger deals.
Yeah.
If the smaller deals are completely taken over by AI and you go straight from smaller deals, picking up the phone to selling massive, what does that career progression look like? And maybe you don't become, maybe you become like a doctor and you have to do 5, 6, 7 years of study before you actually end up in that enterprise AE position, because it does require a lot of experience to get there.
No, that's true. I mean, it's true. I think it applies to every department. Junior developers today have a harder time finding a role because there being a lot of like the AI generated code is replacing those people, those junior people. So, when are they going to come in the industry? Maybe they need to study for longer, but like the space is evolving so fast that it's so relevant to like study something that is not being actually taught at school, like a technology that is evolving so fast that is not even being taught at school. So I think those are like topics that politics and like very smart people are like working on to figure out.
I always think about this a lot. Anyways, AI agents today, if you're a company looking to implement it, Vlad, we often speak with prospects every single day of whether they should build it in-house, if they have the capabilities, whether they should outsource it.
Yeah.
And in the Sequoia article that Julian Beck was talking about, it's that service-based businesses are going to be the future. So being service on the front end and AI agent on the back end.
Yeah.
And a lot of services, a lot of businesses such as yourself and Revenue Flow as well, you can actually create a very affordable model, which might be way cheaper for a company than to build it in-house, where they might require hiring a bunch of engineers to actually build it. So when should a company hire a service such as yourself or such as ours, or when should they actually build these kind of systems in-house? What do you think?
Yeah. I think there's this general narrative to understand like how critical the tool is to your operations. And this should help you determine whether you should build it in-house or like just get a third-party tool. It's kind of a generic narrative, so I don't really have any firm stance on that. If you think in terms of pure productivity, usually I tell my clients, listen, you could hire an AI engineer to do this full time, but it's very likely that if you only have one project at a time, your AI engineer is going to be basically working 1 or 2 days a week, because basically you have certain bottlenecks whenever you ship those tools around collecting feedback. Because the best tools that you build are actually tools that your teams will use. And for your teams to be able to figure out what they need and to give good feedback to the AI engineer to know what to build, it takes time. Like they have to play around with the tool. They need to be able to spend the time to play around with it, to be able to evaluate the output and so on. So I would say that generally like an engineer can maybe work 1 day or 2 days per week on like building a feature. And then it takes like 3 days or 3-4 days or even a full week for the team to give feedback. So unless the company has like 3 or 4 projects in parallel that they need to work on, with a massive like transformation plan, it's not really profitable for them or interesting financially to hire someone full-time to build those things. So this is kind of how I look at it. If they have like a custom one-off thing, they're better off just going with someone like me or, like hire someone online, whatever. But once they have that massive transformation plan and they have this crazy roadmap with a bunch of things they need to build, then maybe that's the moment they want to hire someone internally. And maybe also like one last point on that is those skills are so new. Like I'm talking to people who study like AI, like I don't know, machine learning, like computer science last year, who graduated last year, and they haven't talked about agents. Like this is such a new field that you need to find those talents, figure out whether they're good at their job, and I think it's not easy to hire these people either today, at least.
So if you're a revenue leader today, or heading up a sales function, or maybe as a founder of a business, and you're thinking, all right, because obviously revenue is core of a business, right? Like that is the most important thing. And you're looking to build this internally. What kind of roles and what kind of backgrounds are you specifically looking at? Because before, sales, are you looking at for people with extremely technical backgrounds, computer science, really technical STEM backgrounds? Or what are you looking for when you're looking at someone to actually build these GTM systems internally?
Yeah. I would say like the best backgrounds are product managers who have some sort of like a technical background, because product managers have a good business acumen. I hate that term because I've seen it on so many like job descriptions, but like kind of a business intuition. And then they've also like been deep into the code. They know how to figure things out basically and just adopt new technologies. I think that's another skill that is super important. You need to the stack that you're using today is probably going to look a lot very different in a couple of months. So you have to be able to find people who are not like hardcore fans of like a specific technology and who are willing to just pick up new tools and try different things. And I think product managers are great at that because they're always picking up new tools to get better at their job. Just because they are, they need to do like product discovery, they need to do, interviews, they need to like scope out features, they need to do like product distribution. So, when you're used to like dealing with different dimensions in a specific job and you're not like only doing DevOps, I think this forces you to like get familiar and comfortable with like picking up new tools. So I think, technical background, business sense, and being able to try out new tools are like 3 core skills I'd be looking at.
That's very interesting, and I think maybe previously we would have thought that you'd require like an extremely technical understanding of a specific product. But if you're looking at specifically a high growth company that needs someone to build up the systems and the infrastructure, as you say, the tools are changing all the time. So perhaps you can sacrifice a bit of that technical prowess for, as you say, the dreaded term business acumen to have this kind of middle ground where you get someone who's highly agile, highly adaptable, actually much like our Tim, who's my brother and co-founder, who's basically not the most technical person, but understands products and systems very quickly and actually can build a system. Perhaps that's even more beneficial than like the most technical person in the world.
Yeah, that's true. I think it depends a little bit also on the complexity of the product that you're selling and of your industry. Maybe like in healthcare, you probably want to lean more towards like a more technical end of the spectrum, of like job profiles, just because there are maybe like more constraints on how to work. If you want to fine tune specific LLMs and you have like more traditional AI, ML pipelines that you want to build, maybe this is where you probably also need like more technical people. So it kind of depends also on the broad range of projects that you want to work on, and whether like off-the-shelf tools that you just need to orchestrate and connect together. If that's enough, then maybe having someone with a PM background is more relevant. If it's more about something very sensitive with sensitive data that you basically like build like traditional AI around, this is maybe where you need someone with a more technical background.
And so, a couple of questions before we wrap up today. Thank you, Vlad, for your time. It's been great to hear your insights.
I could do this all day long.
Zooming out, like what is one thing that, there's a lot of hype around AI agents and agentic systems, but I spoke to someone yesterday who said, oh, maybe I could use ChatGPT to write some LinkedIn posts. And the chasm between what you see on X and on LinkedIn with what's going on in AI agents and the reality of some of these businesses, which are doing very, very extraordinarily well in the US, like I'm sure your plumbing wholesaler, it is absolutely huge. It's like the Milky Way galaxy between what's out there and what businesses are adopted today. And so if you were kind of trying to enter this space and trying to like leverage agents and implement them in systems in old businesses, what would be the kind of first step to make sure that you get it right, and then you can actually speak to these kind of older boomers who are owning most of these businesses to get them bought in this process?
So I think, to be totally honest, like when you think about, if you take a step back and think about why agentic frameworks were developed in the first place, they were trying to basically like address the gap of LLMs, which didn't have this reasoning capability. So basically agents allowed to like have this loop of throwing an output and having a second LLM, so a sub agent, let's say, that would evaluate the output and then give feedback to the LLM, and then it would just like kind of feed itself like feedback, and then it would improve. And so this is basically has been solved, let's say, with like reasoning capabilities, because now the agent is like throwing output and then it's reviewing the output and then it's kind of refining its approach. So this is one thing, and then so if we think in terms of agents, you have like those different capabilities, like specialized skills, let's say. And so with the reasoning capability, this is tackled. The second one is around custom integrations. And custom integrations today, you can like plug in like a MCP, you can have your drive that you can connect to ChatGPT or Cloud, whatever. So this has been addressed as well. And then the third one is around memory. And today Anthropic and ChatGPT have both introduced their own versions of like memory, you know. So I would say like at the end of the day, you know, even if I want to go to like a boomer and like sell them like some complex systems, a lot of like what agents do can actually already be done within like a cloud instance or like a ChatGPT instance. So I think there's this trick at like figuring out, okay, do you want something to run like autonomously? This is maybe something that where ChatGPT and cloud would fall short. You know, how do you want it to integrate with your operations? So the reason I say that is when you go to a boomer, it's tempting to like sell something complex, but I think a lot of the value can also come from just setting these like simple stuff for them, you know, like building cloud skills that you can just add to their Anthropic instance, whatever. Just because agents today are, like I love the uniqueness of agents is already embedded into like off-the-shelf tools. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I think
no, it does very well. And I think the answer is kind of like simplicity. And it's often, if you see on like a LinkedIn timeline, there's so many workflows and different charts and everything. And there's that saying, you know, big words baffle the common man. And I like saying, you know, big workflows baffle the common salesperson, baffle the common buyer. And I think that's so totally true. But if you look at, like just yesterday, I was speaking to the founder of a flight simulation company who'd been doing it for like 40 years, and you know they were 10 million, no issues with whatsoever. They wanted to build a bit more pipeline, and I showed him the workflows. He couldn't care less about it. All he wanted to know was, right, how are you going to capture my voice and create LinkedIn content which resonates like me? And it was just focused on that one simple use case, which for him was blowing his mind. He didn't care about all the workflows. So I think it's a great point you say. Keep it simple. Just find one really specific pain point that's simple. And if you can do that well, then the world's your oyster.
Exactly. It's I think once again coming back to what we talked about earlier around like figuring out what the client needs instead of just pushing and just showing all the stuff that you can do with AI. And I think in your case, we're all better off just working in the long term with clients. So if you start with something simple to like build trust and really build what they're asking for, and then a lot of more complex and sophisticated use cases will come around as you start connecting all the stuff together, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. Vlad, thank you very much for your time. Would love to know, where can people find you, and what is the best way that you can help them get started if they want to implement AI agents into their GTM systems?
Yeah, so people can find me on YouTube. On AI with Vlad is my page, where I have a bunch of AI tutorials on how you can build with different agentic frameworks to find leads, to automate, to build like sales copilots, analyze claims, like a bunch of use cases across many industries. I also have Vlad Business AI Explained, which is a podcast where I meet also with fellow AI experts and execs on how they're implementing AI in their operations, and otherwise on LinkedIn with like Vlad de Ziegler, which is my handle.
Awesome. Vlad, thank you very much. And
thanks,
see
man.
you for surf this weekend.
Yeah.